This photo was taken in Thailand on January 27th, 2024 in the evening. The man looks to be high up on some type of building, with someone recording him. This man is Nati Odinson. Nati had a very interesting and, to some, a very scary life. Not in the sense his life was bad, quite the contrary, it appears his life was very good, and he was quite successful in what he did. But I say it may be scary to some, at least if you are afraid of heights, as Nati was a professional skydiver. He had been a skydiver for a while, actually having jumped over 5,000 times. While a good amount of these jumps were him skydiving, he also did base jumping, which is a sport. It's actually widely recognized as one of the world's most extreme sports, as it requires intense physical skill, technical knowledge of aerodynamics, and specialized parachute equipment. These people jump from buildings, antennas, spans, or just the earth, like cliffs. If you put it together, it literally spells out base, which I actually think is pretty cool. But the difference between them is kind of obvious, but I'll explain the difference anyways. Unlike skydivers who carry a main and reserve parachute, base jumpers almost always carry only one parachute, because there is simply not enough altitude or time to deploy a second one if the first one fails. Skydives typically start between 10,000 and 14,000 feet, providing nearly a minute of freefall, while base jumps often occur from as low as 200 to 500 feet, leaving the jumper with only a few seconds to react. Not only that, jumpers are often in close proximity to the object they just leaped from. An off-heading opening where the parachute opens facing the wrong way can cause a jumper to strike a building or a cliff face, because like I said, they're so close. So it's safe to say that base jumping is way more dangerous. Nati, as a professional skydiving instructor and experienced base jumper, he used his high-risk jumps to grow his online presence, particularly his Nati's Sky photography brand, which as of January 24th, 2024 had 10,000 followers. Now, on this day, Nati and one of his friends, who's not named anywhere, went up to the 29th floor of this building you see on your screen in Thailand. Now, Nati wasn't just visiting. He lived in an apartment less than a mile away in the Pha San neighborhood and was in the country on a student visa. Now, before we keep going, I have to explain a more darker side of base jumping. A lot of the times, these base jumpers are actually doing stuff that's illegal. Now, while base jumping itself isn't technically illegal, trespassing is, and this is what a lot of base jumpers do, which includes Nati, at least on this specific occasion, as he and his friend snuck onto that roof at night. Not only is it trespassing, most skyscrapers and apartment complexes in Thailand and elsewhere have strict bans on extreme stunts due to insurance and liability. The building security had actually warned him to stop jumping there multiple times before this day, which means he's done this multiple times on this specific building in the past. Now, Nati, like usual when he does these jumps, had a GoPro on, and was going to record himself jumping off the building, which we can see in the picture. He also had all the necessary equipment to make this jump, and clearly had experienced jumping it before. Now, his friend would catch him jumping on camera, but I can't show you the full thing as, well, you'll find out in a bit. But I can show you a good amount of it, so here it is.
มี flashing ไหมขอดูรอบได้ไหมมองไม่เห็นเหรออ๋อโอเค Is it flashing? Red light? No. Doesn't seem like it. ไม่น่านะน่าจะไม่นะยังใช่ป่ะGood luck, brother. Three, two, one. See ya.
He counts down and then says "see ya" and jumps, but it goes horribly wrong. When base jumping, as I said before, you jump with only one chute, and for this parachute to be pulled out of his backpack, which it was in, you'd have to use something called the pilot chute, which is this thing that he throws before he jumps, this gray and white thing. The pilot chute is connected to the top of the main parachute by a long, strong strap called a bridle, which is right here. You throw the pilot chute, it catches air, it pulls the bridle tight, the bridle pulls the main parachute out of his backpack. That's how this works. When Nati jumped and threw the pilot chute, it inflated perfectly, but instead of pulling the main parachute out of his bag, the bridle was caught under his leg. The pilot chute was essentially tugging on his leg rather than his parachute. And because the bridle was snagged, the main parachute stayed trapped inside of his backpack. In a normal skydive from a plane, he would have had 10,000 feet to cut that away and use a backup. But in this base jump, he was only about 300 feet up, and giving him only 4 seconds before impact. He didn't have a backup parachute, and he didn't have enough time to reach back and untangle the strap from his leg. So instead of floating down to the ground, well, he went barreling down and smashed right into a tree and then onto the hard cement of floor below the tree. When he fell down, someone was close to it, as in the end of the video you can hear what it sounds to be a woman screaming. A security guard on duty reported hearing a loud thud, which he initially thought was a fallen tree branch. He investigated only after hearing a woman screaming. Upon finding Odinson on the ground, the building's security staff alerted the authorities. Officers from the local police force were the first to be officially alerted to the accident and rushed to the scene. When emergency services arrived, they found Odinson in critical condition, with a blue parachute that had failed to fully deploy. Despite their quick arrival, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, without the coroner's report, we don't know his exact injuries, but I mean, given a fall from roughly 300 feet or 91 meters, equivalent to falling at about 80 to 90 miles per hour, the injuries would have been multi-system blunt force trauma. Even with the helmet, the massive deceleration upon impact causes the brain to strike the inside of the skull. This is usually the immediate cause of death, although in Nati's case, the tree might have slightly broken his fall. But at that speed, hitting a solid branch acts more like hitting a steel bar than a cushion, likely causing additional jagged trauma before he hit the hard cement. The friend was a 30-year-old Thai local. He had known Odinson for about 5 months, and had agreed to help him by filming the jump for social media content. He was the one recording from the rooftop when the accident occurred. The police lieutenant confirmed that the friend was taken in for questioning at the local district police station. Although he was in a state of shock, he provided investigators with the video he had recorded, which became a critical piece of evidence in understanding how the parachute malfunctioned. While Odinson had accessed the rooftop illegally without permission from building management, the building owners did not pursue legal action against his estate or the accompanying friend after the accident. A funeral was held for Nati Odinson on February 4th, 2024. The service was organized with the support of the local skydiving community, Thai Sky Adventures, where Nati had been working. His father, who resides in Thailand, and his brother Ed Harrison shared some tributes. Ed described Nati as a hero to his children and expressed comfort that his brother died during a happy time, doing what he loved. His former workplace in the UK released a statement honoring his time on their camera team and encouraging friends to share their fond memories of his massive personality. Okay, so this next case revolves around this man right here, Christopher Perry. Now, Christopher was a very hard-working man. He was the owner of CGP Landscaping Inc., and from the name of it, you can tell the business is about landscaping. Now, while he made the business in 2004, Christopher had been working in the landscaping business since he was 9. He started doing yard work as a summer job. He was so committed to landscaping that he went to Essex Agricultural and Technical High School, where he formerly studied horticulture and arboriculture. By 2023, the business was small, but pretty successful. Although, in addition to his landscaping, Chris worked as a contracted specialist for the quarry run by Aggregate Industries. The quarry hired him specifically for his expertise in crusher maintenance, as he was a mechanical whiz. Chris didn't just know how to use a lawnmower, he was an expert in heavy machinery. Because he ran a successful business for 20 years, he was highly skilled at repairing and maintaining large equipment like backhoes and loaders. So from working both jobs, he was pulling in some good money. Now, in 2023, on July 17th, Chris was called into the quarry at approximately 11 a.m. to assist quarry's foreman with replacing armed guards on a primary rock crusher. To do the specific maintenance required on a gyratory crusher, which was the machine he needed to repair or do maintenance on, he had to physically step inside the machine's belly. He used a ladder to climb down into the crushing chamber. When I say crushing chamber, I mean interior of a Metso 4265 Superior MK2 gyratory crusher, a massive 10-story industrial machine used to break down raw boulders into small rocks. The chamber is essentially a giant deep vertical funnel made of heavy cast steel. The inner surface of the chamber is lined with concaves, thick, wear-resistant plates made of manganese steel that stayed fixed in place. Inside the bowl is a huge cone-shaped head called a mantle. This mantle is attached to a 26-foot-long vertical steel shaft. The bottom of the shaft moves in an eccentric, off-center, circular pattern. This causes the mantle to gyrate or wiggle back and forth against the stationary walls, crushing any rocks caught in the gap. Now, most cases that deal with industrial machines, usually accidents happen because of the workers forgetting or not being allowed to turn off the machine for maintenance. But in this case, the machine was turned off for maintenance. Now, once inside, he stood on a temporary wooden work platform built over the mantle, the giant cone that normally crushes the rocks. Because this machine is so massive, its internal parts, like the 320-pound steel arm guards, are too heavy to move by hand. Even though the machine was turned off, a crane was sitting at the top of the funnel, lowering one of these heavy plates down to Chris, as this was the thing he needed to do maintenance on. But first, he had to clear the debris from the surrounding area. This is the part where it doesn't make sense. He first had to clean the area before they could drop it in, and then he could repair or fix it. But instead of waiting for him to climb out, the crew had the 320-pound steel arm guard dangling directly over him. In that narrow chamber, Chris was essentially trapped. The gap between the internal walls was a mere 14.5 inches wide, leaving him no room to maneuver. To make matters even worse, as the crane lowered the heavy plate, it became wedged against the side of the 10-story funnel. Unaware that the plate was stuck, the operator continued to pull up, applying thousands of pounds of force to try and unstick it. This created massive unseen tension on the lifting lug, the small metal loop, which was 4 inches by 4 inches and was 1.5 inches thick, which was welded to the top of the plate. Now, at 1:06 p.m., the pressure became too much. The weld snapped. Because of the extreme force the crane was using, that metal loop didn't just fall, it was launched downward like a bullet, into the narrow 14-inch space where Chris was cleaning. When the metal lug snapped at 1:06 p.m., the other workers realized instantly that something was wrong. Because the quarry is in a rocky industrial area, multiple agencies were dispatched. Swampscott Police and Fire Departments were the first to arrive. An ambulance service and Salem Fire provided backup. Because Chris was deep inside a massive machine, this wasn't a standard medical call. It was a technical recovery. To get Chris out of the belly of the crusher, the rescue teams had to use a specialized technical extraction. Rescuers had to climb down the same ladders Chris used to reach the temporary wooden platform. Before they could move him, they had to ensure the 320-pound steel plate hanging from the crane was 100% secure. If that plate had shifted while rescuers were inside, more lives would have probably been lost. So once the area was stabilized, they used a Stokes basket, a specialized rescue litter, and likely used the quarry's own hoisting equipment or a fire department ladder truck to lift him vertically out of the 10-story funnel. Tragically though, despite the quick arrival of help, the high velocity impact of the steel lug caused injuries that were almost fatally instantly. He was pronounced dead at the scene once he was reached by paramedics. Because it was a fatal industrial accident, the site immediately became a major investigation scene. The Mine Safety and Health Administration, the Occupation Safety and Health Administration, and the Essex County District Attorney's Office all launched investigations at the same time. The Mine Safety Health Administration issued a 103K order on July 17, 2023, which completely shut down the affected area of the quarry. This order ensured all evidence was preserved and prevented anyone else from entering the crushing chamber, while investigators worked. The final Mine Safety and Health Administration report determined the accident happened because the quarry operator allowed Perry to work directly underneath a suspended load. They also found the welded connector, the lifting lug, which was only 1/4 inch thick, which was physically too weak for the crane's force. While a specific civil lawsuit from the estate hasn't been publicly detailed in recent court filings, the quarry faced significant federal enforcement. The business Chris built for nearly 20 years effectively lost its heart. The community of Lynn and Swampscott had a funeral for him on July 24, 2023, with many of his long-term landscaping clients intending to honor the kind and hardworking man they knew, who died at a pretty young age at 37.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.